So let's just do a quick overview of 18, which is starting to talk about competitive advantages. So you have to understand what customers value in what you do and what customers value in what your competitors do. And then you can begin to sort of figure out a strategy to say, okay, how can I become more important to a particular set of customers and my competitors? And how do I make my competitors either less important or irrelevant? Remember, strategy is always about picking a game you can win. It's and focusing on exploiting your strengths and exploiting the other guy's weaknesses. So you identify who the competitors are, you assess things about these competitors, their objectives, their strategies, their strengths, their weaknesses, and how they react to things, and then you decide how you're going to attack or avoid them. Assessing competitors, profitability, market share, cash flow, technology leadership, service leadership. These are the kind of things you might look at. And competitive strengths and weaknesses. You can take a look at those. You can just decide what you think gives them an advantage with a particular set of customers over you, or particular disadvantages, and you can sort of benchmark yourself against them. They do this, we do this, we're better here, they're better there. Customers have certain values, they decide what's important. Okay, selecting the competitors you're going to attack now. Some of this has to do with, you could even go after what they call the blue ocean strategy, where you're essentially trying to make your competitors irrelevant. You're going after maybe an underserved market that hasn't been addressed yet. Or you're serving a particular market, much, much better than your competitors. You want to find a way of constantly collecting information to know, because the market is constantly changing, and therefore you've got to constantly be able to respond. Some of the things that are more important here. Okay, so these are Michael Porter's 4 basic competitive positioning strategies. So if you're positioning yourself against your competitors, one would be overall cost leadership. So now cost and price are different things. They often go together. But if you can cut your costs, that gives you the ability to cut your price, right? Or it gives you the ability to make more money per unit sold if you keep the same price as your competitors. And having more money per unit sold gives you different advantages. It gives you the ability to do maybe more marketing, or be able to pivot and invest more in next generation products. So cost leadership is an important differentiator. You could just be differentiated in some other way, but it has to be something that the customers care about. For example, if you offered free car washes to some customers, that would be really, really important if you're a car dealer. Other customers, if they were car aficionados, they may like washing their own cars. There may be a thing that they enjoy, so they don't want it. There's no value to them. So whenever you choose what you're going to differentiate on, it has to be something that the customer cares about. And very often, you're taking your product and you're modifying it in such a way that it is much more useful to a particular subset of the market. So that's your differentiation. You can have focus. So you can say, I'm not an outdoor store, I'm a snowboard store. I only sell snowboards, and I only sell snowboards for people who are competitive snowboarders, right? And I know everything there is to know about competitive snowboarding. By the way, I'm not that guy, but I'm just throwing that out there, right, as an example. So you have a very specific focus. You're very good at one thing, and people will pay you a premium for that, just like people will pay you a premium for differentiation. And people will be drawn to you if you have overall cost leadership, because you're able to provide either cheaper prices or, more attention to the customer. What you do not want to be is middle of the road. You don't want to be me too. Oh, I do that too. I'm not particularly better than anybody else, but I do it too, right? So there's no compelling reason to do business with that person. I think that's what the next couple of slides are all about. Okay. Then there's basic competitive strategies. You can have operational excellence. So you're just very good at sort of running the logistics of the organization. So you can argue that, for example, Walmart is particularly good at operations in getting products from manufacturers through regional warehouses to the individual stores and keeping the store shelves stocked. Maybe they're really good at that, right? Customer intimacy might be Apple. They really, really, really understand their customers and understand what their customers want and don't want. So if you're really good at that and really good at designing solutions around that, you could possibly be a leader. You could possibly draw people. You could also have product leadership. So you're coming up with features and designs that nobody else has. So these are usually smaller companies that have just, well, it's not always smaller companies, it's not a fair statement. These can be either large or small companies, but they're particularly good at understanding and developing a key product. And they're the first to come up with particular designs. They're the first to bring out new product categories. So they sort of lead the market. So that could be another way. Operational excellence, customer intimacy, product leadership. Okay, so those are the three. Okay, competitive positionings. So you can be a market leader, a market challenger, a market follower, or a niche market. Okay, so market leaders probably are the most profitable because they have to spend less in marketing. They attract more talent as far as employees go. And they are, from a public relations point of view, they have to do very little work because the competitors are doing it for them. If you were to come out with a new tablet computer today, the first line of the review would be, compared to the iPad, this is what this is like, right? Where if you were new to the marketplace, that becomes a little bit harder. Market challengers, they are far less profitable typically than market leaders and are working a lot harder, and they have to execute better. This would be like Avis versus Hertz. And niche markets can also be profitable because you're probably customizing for an underserved part of the market. So therefore you're the only solution, or the best solution for what they're doing. All right. New users. So how do you expand your total market? You go after new users. You go after new uses. So an example of new uses before the 1980s or 1970s, it was probably 1970s, baking soda was used for baking, right? And then Arm & Hammer had an ad campaign on TV where they ripped the top of a box of baking soda and put it in the refrigerator and said, it makes your food taste better by absorbing odors. Boom, whole new use for baking soda. And then it became baking soda toothpaste and baking soda cleaning products and baking soda this and baking soda that. So baking soda all of a sudden had all these new uses. And so new users, new usage. Okay, market followers. Okay, so this is computer-centered. I think the rest of this, the only other one I wanted to say in here is sort of market followers. One thing I would say here is there's sometimes people think about first mover advantage, being the first to market. That's not always an advantage. Can be if you execute flawlessly and you're able to set standards, but very often being first to market means that you've got to educate the customer, you've got to sort of break new ground, and oftentimes your costs are higher because you're trying to sort of educate and break new ground and get new regulatory issues taken care of and all that, build supplier networks, build distribution networks. Where fast followers, people who watch what you do and then follow on after that, can very often take advantage of learning what you've done and then sort of leapfrogging you. So don't always think that you have to be the first to market. Very often being second or third or fourth to market is not a bad thing, just as long as you're not late to market. I think that's it for what I wanted to cover on that. All right, so I will see